The ones who hide their true selves do so with incredible skill, and covering that facade is no easy task. It's nearly impossible. Still, I'd like to hold on to the hope that Lady Luck will smile upon us in the worst of times. If fortune does come my way, I want to share a bit of it with someone else while expressing my gratitude. My name is Emily. My dad runs a small business. It's a company that supplies food to restaurants, offering high-quality products at affordable prices, so it's pretty popular and has many clients in the restaurant industry. The company was founded by my grandfather, and after he passed away, my father took over as the second president. He runs the business just as carefully as my grandfather did, and though the profits aren't huge, the company stays in the black every year. My mom also worked for the company, helping my dad. She's hardworking, managing both her job and our home, but a lot of it was thanks to the support of my grandmother. When I was little, my grandmother mostly took care of me, but she was so kind that I never felt lonely. When I turned 3, my little brother, Brian, was born, which added to my grandmother's responsibilities, but my mom adjusted her workload to raise us both. Because of this family environment, I never faced financial struggles and grew up as a pretty laid-back girl. By the time I reached elementary school, my interest turned to cooking. It's not just eating, it's all about the culinary art. Of course, I love eating too, but I became deeply interested in how the food is actually made. When I think back to what sparked this interest, it was definitely the meals my grandmother made. Delicious food enriches the heart and brings a sense of happiness. I wanted to someday make meals like that with my own hands. From then on, my grandmother became my cooking teacher and taught me a lot. Learning about knife skills, knowledge about ingredients, and how to use seasonings, it was all hands-on, and expanding my world like that was so much fun. Whenever I had her taste my creations and she said, "This is good, it's delicious," I would jump with joy. My brother, Brian, also took on the role of taste tester, but when the food wasn't good, his face, voice, and attitude would give it away. I'd be a bit shocked, but then I'd get determined, thinking, next time, I'll make something that will bring a smile to his face. By the time I was in middle school, my cooking repertoire had expanded, and I've started taking over dinner on weekends to give my mom a break. When I got to high school, my interest in ingredients themselves grew, and I started studying them on my own. I even created my own ingredient notebook, which became detailed and deep, almost like an encyclopedia. I also started visiting my dad's company more often, especially during summer vacations, where I'd stop by nearly every day to look at and handle the ingredients. I'm sure I must have been a nuisance to the employees, but since I was the boss's daughter, they put up with me. Still, I'm so grateful that they taught me many things. When I became a college student, I started working part-time at my dad's company.
If you're going to come by so often, why not try working?
My dad said, and that's how it began, but working there was much harder than just observing. I had some knowledge about ingredients, but I wasn't involved in sales or anything. My main tasks were delivering and organizing the products, which gave me a chance to handle the ingredients, but it was a physically demanding job that left me exhausted every day. I kept the part-time job throughout my college years, and by the time I was a senior, I had experienced most of the tasks, and the employees even considered me a competent worker. After much thought, I decided to continue working at my dad's company after graduation. Don't go easy on yourself just because you're my daughter. Work even harder than before, my dad said with a stern face. But my mom later told me he was actually happy to have his daughter stay close to him. During my part-time days, I mainly handled organizing the warehouse, checking ingredients, and transporting products. After becoming a full-time employee, my duties shifted to total ingredient management and handling the purchasing and sales records. I try to predict the ingredients our clients will order, purchase them accordingly, and then check the delivery dates and expiration dates to make sure we don't waste anything before shipping them out. Each ingredient requires a different storage condition, and the expiration dates vary as well. That's why it's crucial to manage everything appropriately and keep a close eye on every item in stock. It's a lot of work and takes a great deal of effort, but when I think about how these carefully managed ingredients will be transformed into delicious dishes at the restaurants, it makes it all feel very rewarding. I also kept cooking at home, and whenever I discovered a new ingredient, I'd research what it was and what recipes could be made with it, then try making it myself. I'd have my family taste it and give me feedback. Brian didn't offer much feedback, though. He'd just devour the food, which was fine because watching him enjoy it made me happy.
You're as good as a professional chef, Emily. You've got the knowledge and the skills. If you run a restaurant, it'd be a huge success.
My dad would flatter me like that, and it made me start to think that maybe running a restaurant and having people eat my food wouldn't be such a bad idea. I know it probably wouldn't be that easy, but that's when I started becoming more interested in the idea of running a restaurant. I even began to enjoy the food deliveries I used to dislike, and now I get excited when it's time to go out on a delivery. Most deliveries are done before the restaurants open, so there aren't any customers or dishes ready yet, but I get to see the chefs prepping and working in the kitchen. Watching the professionals at work and getting a feel for the atmosphere of each place. I'm really into it right now. Most of the clients are older, but there's one restaurant where the owner is in his early 30s. He's older than me, of course, but since he's closer to my age than the other owners, we've become relatively friendly. His restaurant is a French one. The owner, Michael, became an apprentice to a chef when he was 18 and worked hard to learn the trade. Last year, he branched out and opened his own restaurant. He sources his main meats from a specialty supplier, but he buys his spices, wine, eggs, and seasonings from our company.
Thanks so much as always. I'm sorry to make you deliver such a small order today.
Oh, no problem at all. Are you marinating something? Looks like it's coming along nicely.
I'm impressed you could tell just by looking. Yes, it's about ready.
I enjoy asking little questions like this during deliveries, and he's always happy to explain things to me in detail, which is why I've started looking forward to delivering to his French restaurant the most. Lately, our conversations have expanded beyond just business and cooking. We've started chatting about casual topics and even personal stuff. I shared how much I love learning about ingredients and cooking methods, and how much I enjoy actually making dishes. I also mentioned that even though I joined my dad's company, being surrounded by ingredients feels like a dream come true for me. Michael told me why he chose to become a French chef, the struggles he faced during his training, and how amazing his mentor chef was. One day, while I was making a delivery and we were talking about French cuisine, Michael said, "You should definitely come by and try the food sometime." Since I love French food and was eager to see the cooking process up close, I decided to take him up on his offer, treating it as a learning experience. My dad, who always appreciates our clients, wanted to join as well, so we made a reservation for that weekend. That evening, we sat at the counter and enjoyed a wonderful French meal, but my eyes were glued to Michael's hands as he prepared the dishes. The way he seamlessly created each dish with such fluid movements was something I could watch endlessly without getting bored. While I was absorbed in watching, my dad took the lead in the conversation with Michael, sharing stories about ingredients and the challenges they both face as business owners. Both my dad and I were extremely satisfied that night. For me, I saw what I needed to see and learned what I wanted to know, and I was filled with ideas for new dishes to try. As for my dad, he was really impressed with Michael, saying he may be young, but he's a fine craftsman. Although my dad and I were satisfied for slightly different reasons, we both agreed that the meal was exceptional. When I delivered ingredients to Michael's restaurant the following Monday, I thanked him for the wonderful dinner.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm always grateful for everything you do for us, and I'm so glad you enjoyed the meal. It was my first time having a real conversation with your dad, and he's such a wonderful and well-respected man.
It felt great to hear Michael compliment my dad, and I couldn't help but feel really happy. Just as I was about to leave after finishing the delivery, Michael suddenly stopped me.
I know this is really sudden, and I apologize for that. But Emily, would you consider going out with me? I just can't stop thinking about you.
Shocked, I dropped the tray I was holding, and it hit the floor with a loud clatter. His gaze, though shy, was steady as he looked straight at me, and my heart was set ablaze. It was the first time I'd ever received such a confession from a man, and with how sudden it was, I felt an indescribable sense of surprise. But it wasn't a bad feeling at all. In fact, joy began to well up inside me. I realized that it was because I liked him too. Looking back on it now, I get a bit embarrassed, but in that moment, I immediately said yes to his offer, my eyes shining with excitement. And so, our relationship began. Having never had a boyfriend before, a whole new world opened up for me, and my days became brighter and more exciting. It felt a little funny calling each other by our names, Emily and Michael, but my heart fluttered with excitement every time we went on a date. Sometimes, I'd cook a meal for him myself.
Emily, everything you make is amazing. You've got such a wide range of dishes, and they're all delicious. The quality is incredible.
Hearing that from a professional like you makes me so happy. Cooking is just a hobby for me, after all.
I may specialize in French cuisine, but you're good at everything. And honestly, this isn't just hobby level anymore.
Michael would praise my cooking, saying things like, "You'd definitely be successful if you were in a restaurant," echoing something my dad had once said to me. "If you're serious about it, I'll help out however I can," Michael would say, encouraging me. But for me, the most fulfilling thing was simply having the person I loved enjoy my cooking. After a year of dating, Michael proposed to me. He knelt down on one knee, offering me a ring, and I couldn't help but laugh at how classic the gesture was, but he was completely serious.
I wanted to get you 100 roses, but I couldn't find them anywhere, so I had to give up. I'm sorry.
He'd apparently been planning something even more traditional, but what mattered most to me was his heartfelt proposal. Of course, I accepted, and just like that, we were engaged. Then the preparations for the wedding began. Both of our parents were thrilled, especially my dad, who said, "If it's Michael, I have no worries at all," and was overjoyed to be gaining a new son.
For Emily and Michael, I'll spare no effort to support you.
He said, raising a celebratory toast in high spirits. Michael told me I could continue working at my dad's company after the wedding or pursue my passion for cooking, whichever I wanted. I had been planning to leave the company and help at Michael's restaurant, but he said,
Emily, you should do what you love. I can manage the restaurant on my own, and if things get busy, we can just hire more staff.
I saw it as a sign of his kindness and generous heart, and I resolved to support him through my cooking. It seemed like my happiness was reflected in my food as my recipe repertoire continued to grow and my knowledge of ingredients expanded even further. A week before the wedding, I cooked a meal for Michael and my parents, and my dad and Michael were both excitedly talking about how I should open my own restaurant. After the wedding, our days were filled with happiness, and that happiness seemed to show in Michael's business as well. The restaurant, which had always been popular for its delicious food, became even busier after a price drop on certain items attracted more customers. Word of mouth brought in more guests, and with the increase in profits, Michael was able to renovate the restaurant slightly, attracting more young people. Although the average spend per customer dropped a little, total sales skyrocketed. As business picked up, Michael hired a new woman to help with serving. She turned out to be very capable, quickly learning the job and becoming a reliable part of the team. Michael also made a point of being considerate towards my parents and often found common ground with my dad, the two of them frequently sharing drinks together. I continued to enjoy working with ingredients, always using the knowledge I gained to inspire new dishes. Living this dreamlike life, I felt truly blessed. This blissful life went on for a year, but recently, Michael's workload has increased, and he's been coming home late at night more often. He says it's because he needs to prepare for the next day, and he leaves early in the morning to start prepping. He told me that this is a critical time for the business, so he's reduced the number of days the restaurant is closed, which has drastically cut into our time together. I was starting to worry about how to spend more time with Michael, but then a different concern emerged. The poor weather leading to crop failures, the rise in prices of imported goods, the social trend of people eating out less, more restaurants struggling with their businesses, and fewer new establishments opening up. All of these combined factors were causing my dad's company's sales and profits to drop compared to the previous year, month after month. It wasn't that I was completely oblivious, but despite working there, I hadn't noticed the company's worsening situation until recently. Now that I think about it, my dad seemed to be running around in a frenzy every day as the president, but I never really thought about why. One morning, my dad announced an emergency meeting as the president. As my dad and the other executives stood together, their faces were grim, and the employees held their breath, waiting to hear what would be said.
Due to the current business situation, we will be applying for corporate rehabilitation under the reorganization law as part of our efforts to recover.
The company's financial condition had deteriorated, leaving us with excessive debt and making repayment virtually impossible. After exploring every possible way to keep the company afloat, the decision was made to apply for corporate rehabilitation. Going forward, we would enter reorganization proceedings, but the current management team would have to step down, and the company's shares would become worthless. My dad even planned to sacrifice his personal assets to provide funds for the company. The sudden news sent the employees into chaos, but I was more concerned as a family member than as an employee. My dad loved the company and his work. If he was going to sell off most of his personal belongings to save the company, our family's living situation would surely take a hit. I'd probably lose my job, too, and the only comfort was that my brother Brian had already graduated from college and secured a job. I imagined my mom would also face a tough time ahead. Above all, I knew I had to tell Michael about this. That night, I waited up for him to come home late. He was eager to go straight to bed, but when he heard my story, he froze in shock.
I can't believe it. Emily, I know you must be worried, but stay strong. What's going to happen to the company and your dad?
The company's going to try to recover, but honestly, it's basically bankruptcy. My dad is using his personal assets, so he won't go bankrupt himself, but it's close to that. Michael let out a big sigh and said he needed to get some sleep, heading off to the bedroom. The next day was the restaurant's first day off in a while, and I had hoped to talk to Michael about what we were going to do moving forward. The next morning, Michael got up early and left the house, returning around midday.
Emily, I need to talk to you. Come here.
I wanted to talk to you about my dad, about what we should do now.
Your dad? That doesn't matter anymore. Not to me.
What? Michael, what are you saying? Confused, I asked him again, and he handed me some papers.
Here's why. This is freshly received divorce papers I just got from the family court. I've already signed it, so all you need to do is fill in your part and submit it. Then your dad will no longer be my father-in-law. That's why I don't care anymore.
Looking at the divorce papers on the table, it felt surreal, as if I were watching it happen on TV, not experiencing it myself.
Bankruptcy, insolvency. You've got to be kidding me. There's no way I'm getting dragged into that mess.
Michael's words snapped me out of the feeling that this was some kind of fictional scenario on TV, forcing me to face the harsh reality.
We were getting a great deal on cheap ingredients from your dad's company, but now that's over. If I can maintain my profit margins, it's not even worth discussing. And bankruptcy. Who knows what kind of trouble he'll bring us. Your dad is nothing but bad luck now.
Michael's words continued, as if he'd become a different person.
And you, Emily, you kept turning down the chance to use your cooking skills to run a restaurant and make us some real money. I tried to get cheap ingredients to boost profits, but with the company going under, that plan's dead. Your cooking alone won't keep a business afloat. I thought maybe you couldn't take over the company ahead of your brother, but I was still hoping we'd get something out of it. But now, bankruptcy.
The man standing in front of me wasn't the Michael I knew. It was like he'd transformed into someone else entirely.
Do you get it now? You're no longer useful to me, just a burden. From now on, I'll be with someone younger, someone with a better figure.
You mean the woman who works as a server at your restaurant? So, you've been cheating on me all along. Michael smirked. What are you talking about? He didn't even bother answering my question.
Now, go ahead and sign the papers and submit them today. Then get out. This is my house, and I'm the one on the lease. Although I'll be canceling it soon to start a new life with her. Oops, maybe I said too much.
I don't remember much of what happened after that. I vaguely recall holding the divorce papers, going to the city office, and handing them in. I think I went back to my parents' house and told them what happened. I'm not sure how my parents or my brother reacted. I just know that my dad decided to sell our family home and move into a rental apartment in the suburbs. I apologized tearfully for becoming a burden on them after returning home. Several years have passed since then. Now, I'm sitting in one of the most luxurious French restaurants, waiting to meet someone. As I reflect on how far I've come, the door to the restaurant opens, and a new customer walks in.
Hey, it's Emily, isn't it? What are you doing in a place like this? Don't tell me you're here to eat. A place like this is way out of your league for a bankrupt man's daughter.
I turned around and saw Michael, standing there with a smirk, looking down on me. Beside him was a young woman, and I instantly recognized her as the woman Michael had been cheating on me with back then.
Leaving you, a cursed woman, was the best decision I ever made. Now I'm with this amazing woman, and my restaurant's doing even better, thanks to a new supplier. Things are better than ever.
Well, good for you, but it doesn't have anything to do with me anymore. I threw the words at him, not wanting to stay a moment longer in the same place as this man, and I turned to leave. Michael gave a nasty laugh.
By the way, aren't you living in some rundown place now? After selling off your family home and going broke, where are you staying these days?
Just then, a calm but stern voice came from behind him.
Oh, it's just a shabby $15,000 a month high-rise apartment. A bit run down with a nice view from the top floor, though.
Michael spun around, startled, and his shock deepened when he saw who had spoken.
David, the president. Why are you here? And how do you know Emily? Wait, a high-rise apartment?
Your restaurant does business with David's company, doesn't it? I hear you've been pushing him to lower the prices on your supplies quite a bit. He's here to meet me. His company also supplies this restaurant.
What? You two seem pretty friendly. What's a bankrupt woman like you doing with a company president?
David, much like my dad, runs a food supply company and has always admired my father as a mentor. Right after high school, he joined my dad's company, where he learned everything about the business from my dad. He later started his own company at a young age. David's company has continued to grow, and when my dad's company went bankrupt, David offered financial support and guided it toward recovery. My dad now serves as a part-time advisor to the company. After my breakup with Michael, I worked closely with David to help my dad's company. And over time, our relationship deepened, eventually leading to our engagement. Today, we were here to have dinner with our families.
My father-in-law's company has fully recovered. They've reached the point where they no longer need my financial support. The company's new president will be none other than your father's eldest son, Brian.
Brian, my younger brother, started working in finance, but quickly became successful in investment due to his natural talent. He used his wealth to help revive the company and repay David, securing control of the business. It's remarkable how smoothly everything has worked out in the past few years.
I only recently learned about you when I found out that you were connected to a problematic business partner. I never imagined that client had ties to my fiancée. You dumped her thinking only of yourself, but you've made a huge mistake, especially when you hear how much she earns.
To think of that, you said something about a $15,000 a month high-rise apartment. What does it mean?
I'm currently working as a culinary expert. I've published several books, give lectures, and earn through social media ads. That's how I'm able to afford such a place now. After separating from Michael, when I thought about what I could do for my dad, I realized that cooking was my true calling. The video channel I'd started before our divorce had begun to gain popularity, catching the attention of a publisher. Everything fell into place, and I published a book filled with my knowledge and recipes. The book became a huge hit, going through multiple reprints, and my channel's subscribers skyrocketed, increasing my ad revenue. My fame spread, leading to invitations for lectures and TV appearances, and I published a second and third book. Michael, unable to believe what he was hearing, turned pale, his expression changing rapidly.
Wait, that's incredible. Emily, I always knew you'd do something amazing. How about we get back together? I bet you still have feelings for me.
I looked at him with utter disdain. Don't call me so casually, and please stop talking to me like that. It's disgusting. Beside him, the woman he was with glared at him furiously. At that moment, a loud voice echoed through the restaurant.
Michael, you told me your ex-wife cheated, and that's why you divorced her. Was that a lie?
Well, it's not like that.
The chef of this restaurant was Michael's mentor. After high school, Michael had trained under the chef and opened his own restaurant with the chef's blessing.
I heard from David about a real scumbag in the business, but I didn't know it was you. You've disgraced my name. You better be ready to face the consequences.
Michael's face turned ghostly white, and he began shaking. We left the restaurant, leaving Michael behind. I felt bad for the chef, but I couldn't stand being in the same place as Michael any longer. Later, the chef kicked Michael out of his mentorship and issued a warning for others not to associate with him. Michael had received financial support as part of the customary practice when opening his restaurant, but the chef demanded repayment, and Michael found himself in financial trouble. David also cut off all business dealings with Michael, leaving him without access to the cheap ingredients he relied on. Forced to raise prices, Michael's restaurant quickly lost customers and soon shut down. Pathetically, Michael kept trying to reconcile with me, so I went to the police and got a restraining order. Since it hadn't been too long since our divorce, I also sued both him and his mistress for infidelity during our marriage, which led to a nasty fight between them, and they ended up divorcing. Claiming he was single again, Michael violated the restraining order and approached me, leading to his arrest. Michael's downfall gave me a sense of closure, but with all the debt weighing on him, I doubt he'll be able to recover, even after being released. Meanwhile, I continued to build my culinary career and married David. We now live in a beautiful high-rise apartment with a stunning view. My dad's company has made a full recovery, and my brother Brian is now the president. Although Brian lacks experience, my dad will continue to support him. I feel incredibly grateful for how everything has turned out and hope to share some of this good fortune with others.